College Station. I'm Grace Hollowell, and today I'm joined by Harlei Struck from the College Station Fire Department. Hi, Harlei.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Welcome back to the show.
Thank
It's been
you.
a little while.
Yes, it has.
But we are going to kind of get into some summer fire safety tips here. So to kick things off, we're kind of going to go into your background here. We've had you on the show before a few times. So how long have you been with the College Station Fire Department?
So I started my position in January of 2023, so just over 2.5 years.
And what is it that you do for the department?
That is a loaded question. I feel like it's an umbrella of things, truly. I get the amazing ability to educate the community on fire prevention, fire safety, some general safety tips and concerns. I get to go into all the elementary schools and interact with them during Fire Safety Month. We also run several different programs that I oversee, such as the Smoke Alarm Assistance Program, the CPR education, and fire and life safety education that includes Stop the Bleed and fire extinguisher training.
And that is, that education is very formative. I know I remember the fire department coming into my elementary school and, teaching me not to play with matches and what to do if there is a fire. And that's kind of the core, right, of fire prevention is
Yes, ma'am.
education.
There generally is like a theme every year provided by the NFPA, so we kind of want to touch base on what their theme is, and then also what general fire safety tips we can provide to the community and make sure we have that connection with kids and even adults sometimes.
Yes. So what is something that you've noticed? I know you've been here a short time, but long enough now. What are some changes that you've noticed since you started?
For one, our department switched from a 24/48 schedule to a 48/96. I feel like that was honestly the biggest change in scheduling wise, because I also organized the fire calendar and how we go about organizing different events for personnel to attend to, as well as it allows our personnel to decompress more before preparing for the next shift.
Yeah, so let's kind of dive in for people that don't know, what does that type of schedule mean, or what does that look like?
So our shifts start at 7 a.m., so they're on for 2 full days. So let's say they just started a shift today. They're on from 7 a.m. today to, today's Tuesday, so Wednesday then Thursday. They'll get off at Thursday at 7 a.m., so they won't be back for another 4 days.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's something that people don't really think about when, a typical job is 8 to 4 or 9 to 5. And yeah, that schedule is something that is important, especially for our emergency responders, because there's no set time that emergencies happen. Yeah. Okay, so what is one thing that you wish people knew about your department?
When people talk about their fire family, they genuinely mean family. I came into this position with no prior fire experience, fire school, or anything. I did have some family members that had a career in the fire service. My granddad was a deputy fire marshal for like Dallas County and stuff, but other than that, no personal experience. And the crew just treats me like one of their own in the sense of their willingness to help me put together activities, attend events, or even outside of work. I've had a crew member graciously install my car battery for me when mine went out, which was great because it was right between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that saved like so much money.
Yes.
Especially after like 2 days before I had to travel home.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, they're just incredible people, and to understand that, hey, they're people too. They're coming from, everybody has different family situations going on, different careers outside of the fire service as well. Some own their own businesses. And they're coming in here and still serving to protect the community.
So what makes you, so we've kind of touched on it a little bit, so passionate about community outreach, especially in regards to fire safety. So what makes you get up in the morning and excited to get to work?
I absolutely love what I do. I am not going to lie. Shout out to LinkedIn for showing me this position. I was like scrolling while I was visiting a friend here, found it, got on my computer immediately and applied. But in that sense, I had no idea what this was. I prepared for the interview. I'm in my bedroom. Mind you, I still lived at my parents' house at the time. And I'm like, I have no idea what this is about. I'm like researching, looking up YouTube videos, some old College Station videos pulled up, and I'm like, I need to be prepared. I like really love this job. The job I had prior to this was actually an early childhood special education teacher for a very small town in East Texas. So I knew I still wanted to work with kids to some capacity and also utilize my business degree, which thank gosh I never have to calculate in stocks and bonds again. But organizational preparation and what I learned at university definitely helped me go into this role.
Yeah, so kind of different, but in the same vein of education,
Yes.
Using those skills to educate about fire safety. What is the biggest thing that you've learned so far being in this position? I'm sure there's a ton.
Oh my gosh, I feel like there's so many that I could answer. One thing that I've learned is just the outreach into the community is definitely needed, but also what the community gives back to us, right? This community is extremely incredible in the sense that they're giving back to their first responders. I mean, we have a program that sets up Feed the Crew bi-monthly to come in and, keep camaraderie between our volunteers versus our shift personnel, as well as different events. I mean, people are so eager to learn about us, help us out, or even just touch base with us and make sure we're okay.
We'll kind of get into this a little later on, but what fire services responds to is sometimes not just fire-related things.
Yes.
It's also could be a car accident or any sort of emergency response. You guys are there as well.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, if it's not fire-related, a perfect example is, I believe, a kitten in a storm drain got rescued about a year ago. One of our personnel got down in there and saved the animal, which is great as well.
Yes, that's something I feel like is synonymous with firefighters, is getting a kitten out of a tree or out of a storm drain. Or even I've seen, a kid got some sort of toy caught around their neck, and the mother didn't know what to do, so she went to the fire station, and the fire department and the firefighters were able to help get whatever was stuck off of them.
We actually not too long ago had an individual come up to Station 6, and she had her Aggie ring stuck on her finger, and she said the last resort is she's going to the emergency room, but just asked if there's anything we could do, and she wanted to try to save it as much as possible.
Of course.
Unfortunately, there definitely was some damage to the ring because it became an emergency situation where her finger is turning blue and purple and stuff. So we were able to cut the ring off and actually do it just enough to where she could potentially go get it fixed, but also save the finger. So
yes, very, very important. You don't want to lose
Not
your
the
Aggie ring or your finger.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is something that most people don't know about being a firefighter or working in the fire industry?
Oh my gosh. Another answer, same thing, is a lot of stuff. I feel like there's just so much that our department does or can offer, and then people don't understand the capacity to what we're willing to go towards or what we can do performance-wise on scene. Different things would be like the education side. I mean, some people just think fire service and that we're running fire calls all the time, when in reality it's 75% at least EMS calls.
Right.
And then we also heavily focus on the education side and try to do fire prevention. And it might make a firefighter's day getting to go to a fire call, but we also humbly understand that that's somebody else's worst day. We don't want that to happen. So we're putting a lot of focus on to the education and prevention side of things.
And lastly, how can people contact you? I know 911 is the option, obviously, if there is an emergency.
Yes.
But if people have general questions or are interested more in the prevention side or education side, where can they go to find out more?
So they're totally welcome to reach out to me directly through my work email or my office phone number, and I'm happy to connect them to anybody else in the department or answer their questions directly and set up something to give them better understanding of whatever questions they may have.
So let's talk about, with the warmer months, what are some of the challenges that y'all see fire-wise?
There's a lot of risk coming into the warmer months, especially now that a lot of the rain is, I don't want to say over because it's great, right? But it's starting to slow down for sure. So any kind of dry lightning, striking structures or materials that can burn quickly. In the warmer months, you also have cars that can overheat easily. So you're going to see probably more vehicle fires or additional materials that probably shouldn't be burned, and just making sure that people are in the know of whether there's a burn ban locally or not, what items should or should not be placed near flammable materials, and how to dispose of things properly. Because I feel like some people still, they have the don't throw cigarettes in the trash can in the back of their mind, but they're still doing it because they might be in the mindset of, oh, that can't happen to me, and then worst case scenario happens.
Yes. And I know we've had some code enforcement officers on the show before talk about parking on the yard, which is a no.
Yes.
It's a code violation here in the city of College Station. But a lot of people don't realize why. They might think it's aesthetically, it just doesn't look nice having cars parked on your yard. But especially in the summertime, it can pose a fire safety risk.
Absolutely. So especially if the grass is dry and the vehicle overheats, that's just more fuel that's going to lead to other things and just engulf the fire even more.
So what are the top safety tips for people that are going to be outside and dealing with either a grill or a fire pit?
I feel like one of the biggest things is just making sure that the grill or fire pit, whatever your main source of flames may be coming from, is away from the structure, right? You don't want to have anything too close that's flammable to your house. You want to keep it at least 10 feet away, preferably even further if you can, out of dry areas like the grass, not in enclosed areas, because some people, hopefully nobody's doing this in the summer months, might cook in their garage with maybe the garage door cracked. Huge no-no. I mean, stuff can build up even in there. One of the other tips that we have is making sure your grills and stuff are cleaned. So grease buildup, cooking with high fatty meats, stuff like that can also cause the flames to grow larger, and that poses additional risk as well.
Yes. So if you are in an apartment complex, are there some guidelines there? I know we mentioned keeping away from structures. Mm-hmm. Definitely do not, if you have a balcony, be grilling on your be grilling under your covered balcony.
Yes, ma'am.
So are there other guidelines in particular for apartment complexes or grilling in public spaces like a park or something like that?
Charcoal and gas grills are often prohibited on balconies and overhangs within an apartment complex. Most of them have designated cooking areas that they might be able to supply, like charcoal themselves, but the structure, like the grill, is permanently established within the ground. So just ensuring that you're using designated areas. Any particular details on what can or cannot be used on your balcony or patio should be specified within the lease, and just being familiar with your lease as well. One fire hazard or tip for people in apartment complexes or even rentals are to have renter's insurance.
Yes.
You never know what could happen to your neighbor's house that might also affect yours, or if you are the cause of it, how can you rebuild from there if something were to happen? Additional details regarding like cooking equipment within an apartment complex can also be asked within your managing or leasing office. Just checking with them, rather be safe than sorry, and then find out your grill or something might be confiscated or you get fined. You want to follow safety tips and also prevent yourself from having to spend additional money to recoup from said events.
Right. And kind of playing off of that, with it being the 4th of July, fireworks, which are illegal inside city limits of College Station, and I believe in Bryan as well. And why is that? I know some people might think, oh, it's not a big deal, like, why are they illegal? Why is it so important that you do not shoot fireworks off in your backyard inside the city?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know the specifics as why the city has outlawed them. I think safety-wise, there's a lot of risk doing it within city limits that have high traffic volumes, at least in my opinion. Now, I don't know the nitty-gritty answer for the city's view on it. I know we have some designated areas that people can go and view fireworks, but as for personal use, it's just not advised. There's a huge risk. One of the biggest factors in commonly used items are sparklers alone, and they actually have some of the most reports of injury every year. So just ensuring our community members are staying safe.
Yes, and that's something with the sparklers that you wouldn't typically think that they could be so dangerous. I mean, you hand them to kids to, wave around, but that is an open flame on a metal stick.
Yes.
So what types of injuries can these pose?
Other than starting fires themselves and causing harm to property, they pose risk to life in a sense of, depending on how big something can go up from there, is also causing burns or even minor injuries. As a kid, I remember twirling the sparkler around and part of it flying off, and luckily I'm near a body of water when I'm using fireworks and I can put it out rather quickly. But around here, grass is dry this time of year, so if something were to be misused or accidents happen, right, it's just going to pose a bigger risk to themselves and other community members around them.
Yes, and it can happen in an instant.
Yes.
And I know in that type of situation, you might think you would know how you would react, but ultimately you never know until it happens. So if somebody is burned by a firework or by a grill fire or anything like that, what are the steps that they need to take? What is the first thing they need to do?
I feel like depending on the severity of it, the obvious answer would be to call 911. Some minor burns can be treated at home, so you don't necessarily need emergency personnel to respond to that. If it is a non-emergency, I would say run it under cool water, not cold, cool for around 10 minutes at least, trying to reduce the temperature some. Don't put any adhesive Band-Aids over it, and be cautious of what ointments you're applying to it as well. Any clothing items that also may be stuck to the skin if you were burned, if you remove them without proper cooling down, it can rip the skin off and cause the recovery process to be even longer. So just being aware of the risk at hand, like if you have a higher risk of being burned, just what your safety steps should be in that moment, because it's different for everybody. I mean, grilling risk versus maybe around Thanksgiving time when you're frying turkeys or something, and that grease is a whole nother monster to have to take down. Is what, like fireworks, what we're talking about right now, the flames and heat can heat up rather quickly, is particularly with kids who maybe like to run away when they're being told no during fireworks season. So if they're injured in that sense, running it under cool water and just knowing when to call 911. I mean, if it's a surface burn, you should be able to take care of it at home, or if you want to be overly cautious, you can take them somewhere. But if it's deep penetrated, maybe even bleeding profusely at that point, go ahead and just call. Immediately reacting to it will help the recovery process.
Yes, that is something that we educate here, is you don't ever have to be afraid to call 911. You're not going to get in trouble for calling 911 if you feel that there is an emergency. And with burns, it's something that, like we said, you need to act quickly to prevent further damage. And something that we've kind of touched on that is fire adjacent, more emergency services, is drowning prevention.
Yes.
I know a lot of people around here have backyard pools or going out where there is a body of water. What is some of the top things that people need to keep in mind, especially with kids being around open water or a backyard pool?
I feel like one thing people don't really think of, mainly because they're so cute and adorable at the store, is swimsuit colors.
Yes.
I mean, picking bright colors, yes, you may not want somebody in hot pink or neon yellow or something, but it's more visible at the bottom of a pool than in blue, gray, and black. Keeping those in mind, and using floaties, there's no shame. I still use a float when I go to the lake, mainly because at some point I'm lazy and I don't want to keep swimming.
Right.
But there's no shame to safety, right? You're wanting to protect yourself and your loved ones, and accountability to people around you as well. I mean, I would rather somebody get upset with me on calling them out for safety reasons than them getting upset with me for not addressing some concerns that they may have not been aware of. For example, kids using life vests. Some people are like, well, they've swam in this pool so many times before, they should be used to it, or don't have a fence or proper way to make sure kids don't get into a body of water without a parent noticing, and communicating with each other on who's taking watch on the children, right? I think when you go to a community pool or a lake or a large body of water, and there's a lot of adults around, you might take your eyes off the child for a second and not confirm who's watching them, but things can happen in an instant. Just being on your A game and making sure they're being safe as well as yourself.
Right, and I know it's scary to think about, especially with kids who have done swim lessons, and are familiar with swimming and being in water. From a personal standpoint, I had a little cousin who was swimming at his grandparents' house. They were both out there. Grandma went inside to get a drink. Pawpaw went around the house to grab something from the garage, and by the time they came back, he had struggled and they had to call 911, and thankfully he is okay. But like you said, anything can happen in an instant, so supervision is very important, especially around kids in the pool.
Absolutely.
And if you are the one that is responsible for the kids, it might not be the best idea to mix alcohol with your celebrations.
And that is a common thing. Fireworks are associated with holidays for the most part, and so are adult beverages. So ensuring, one, that you're old enough to be enjoying the drink, but also making sure you're taking care of yourself. It's way easy to be overheated and drinking alcohol. Your body may not be able to comfortably take in as much, and you may not realize that your body's reacting before you do. Drinking alcohol, especially if you're observing kids and responsible for them, typically don't mix as well, because you're going to get distracted by some point, and it's just not a good mix.
Right, your reactions are delayed a little bit, so definitely if you're the one that's responsible for the kids, or if you're the one setting off the fireworks, do not mix with alcohol. We've talked a lot about these prevention tips and common things that you see in the summertime. Where can people find out more information for fire prevention, education, any upcoming community events that y'all may have? Where can people learn more?
Yeah, so one thing that they can do is check out like the city website. Sometimes I know our city team does put out little pro tips for the community members to kind of review and take in, and then also our website has some tips posted. We highly encourage people to observe the nfpa.org. They have the most up-to-date protocols, standard practices, and stuff like that as well. And then I believe the Brazos County emergency responders have some type of forum for people to review for safety tips particular to our area.
Okay, but before we wrap up, we've been doing a fun little segment here to wrap things up and close things out. Just a fun rapid fire game of this or that questions. And I've kind of themed them today to be around hot and cold in the summertime. So are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you prefer your coffee hot or iced?
Iced, especially Frappuccino.
Okay, what is your go-to Frappuccino?
I know it's summer, but like pumpkin spice, when it is out, that's probably what I'm getting every single time.
Yes, pumpkin spice. We're all big fans of that here. Do you prefer s'mores or popsicles?
I wish I could say both, because I feel like s'mores is more commonly associated with summer, but probably popsicles just to cool down in this heat.
Yes, definitely, for sure. And do you prefer, if any of these, a sauna or a cold plunge?
Oh my gosh, I know we're talking about cooling down, but probably sauna. I love getting my sweat out.
Yes.
Feeling more cleansed afterwards than going to showering and then cooling off. But I think I would rather take a sauna
than a
sure.
Cold plunge. Yes, definitely. And what is your favorite College Station spot to beat the heat?
The Cove. I am graciously have a membership, and shout out to their team for extending a membership to all first responders at our department. I'm very grateful for that, because not often do I get to go, but when I do, I'm taking full advantage of their amenities, like the lazy river. They have the pizza bar that they can let attendees enjoy, and I've even brought my parents. With a membership, you can bring like up to 2 guests for free, and my parents think it's the coolest place to come visit when it's open.
Yeah, awesome. Definitely a great place to cool down. And then finally, what is your favorite summer memory?
Oh gosh. A very generic answer would be just spending time with friends and family. I think we, particularly for me and my family, we run constantly going to different family and friend events that it's hard to choose just one. But more recently, I got to go on a friend's bachelorette to Austin, and that was pretty exciting. So we're gearing up for her wedding in November and just diving into their relationship together as a future husband and wife.
Awesome. Yeah, summertime is a great time to slow down a little bit and spend more time with your loved ones.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Harlei.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And that's what's up.